A few years back I looked at pipe clamps available here in Australia. I poo-pooed the rubbish red set from eBay. I liked the Rockler Shorefoot found at Carbatec, but I thought their price was a little unwieldy, and ultimately I declared the not as good but at a much more gooder a price clamps from Timbecon the winner. In my quest to own the equivalent value in clamps as a luxury car, I've been stepping up my game lately and looking into parallel clamps. Luckily for me, Timbecon and Carbatec have added new, more affordable parallel clamps to their lineup. Maybe I'll only need to spend a small car's worth on clamps after all. If you're not in Australia, you might not know that previously we've only had one brand of parallel clamps available, and we liked it because choice is hard. Having three choices all of a sudden is strange, confusing, and even a little bit scary. Don't worry, Doctor the Wood Knight is here to tell you which to pick so you don't have to worry about a case of analysis paralysis. First up are these Bora clamps available at Carbatec. If I had to pick one overwhelming feature about these, it isn't their orangeness, surprisingly, it'd be the price. They're cheap, really cheap. At full price, they're between 33 and 46% less than the previous Bessey staple diet clamp. That tasty price though, it comes at a cost. These clamps are what I'd picture if someone described what a parallel clamp was to a manufacturer without either party actually ever using one. They mostly function, but they get so many of the little things wrong, which separates an okay clamp from a great clamp. So what did they get wrong? Well, the clamp heads don't start out parallel. They only pull parallel once you crank down on them. That can't be right. Oh, that is right. Bora have made a parallel clamp that's not parallel. And what's kind of worse is that this is not a bug, it's a feature. In Bora's own words, they've looked at all the other parallel clamps that are on the market, and they've determined that none of them are parallel when they're loose. And I can sort of see the logic. It doesn't matter if, when you're not clamping anything, they're not parallel. When they're clamped, you want them to be parallel. So if they have to pull parallel, not a big deal. I've said the word parallel too often. If we look at this clamp head here, the fixed head, it's a couple of degrees out, and so's the moving head. So when you push them together, they're not parallel, and when you start clamping them, they start to pull into parallel, but you've really got to crank down on it. This is a problem when you're clamping up something that is small and doesn't want a lot of pressure, otherwise you might cause it to buckle or you might cause it to deform or whatever. When you just need to slightly pinch it, these aren't parallel. If we look at one of the other options on the market, the jet clamp or the Torquata clamp, let's see. Yeah, that's pretty close to square there. So these are a lot closer to parallel when they're loose, and there's a little bit of play, that's fine. But without even tightening them, they're parallel. Oh dear. The moving section of the clamp, this one here, is the same size as the non-moving section and the same height as the foot, which means when you're moving the moving section, you are fighting friction moving the whole clamp across the workbench. The foot locks on with a cam, a neat idea, but it jams and it's nearly impossible to move. It's an all plastic cam at that. They require dance moves to operate the clamp. Pull the handle to release, push the body to advance, and then hope the spring holds it when you don't want it to move. Those may not sound like deal breaker issues to you, but despite these being cheap for parallel clamps, they're not cheap clamps. $50 dues a pop adds up when they fizzle out a little. Driving the car comparisons into the ground, the Torquata clamps aren't nearly as cheap as the Boras. We're entering station wagon value clamps here. On average, these are about 15% less than the Besseys, and they are 100% less orange than the Boras. Underneath the hood of these affordable for mid-sized family clamps lies a secret though. These are actually Jet clamps in disguise. In the US, Jet and Bessey clamps seem to trade blows in pricing. Which clamp you choose might purely come down to which one is on sale at that time. These are the yin to the Bora's yang. For each misstep the Bora's made, these obnoxiously green clamps kind of do it right. These clamp heads start parallel, or at least much more parallel, and then they stay parallel, allowing you to apply much less pressure or really crank it down should you need to. The movable head is smaller, meaning it glides up and down the bar with no issues. The foot uses a brass thumb screw on the side, no more awful cam getting jammed all the time. It's easy to lock and it's easy to move. And unlike the Boras, there's just one mechanism for moving this up and down. You lift the lever, slide it up and down, no more remembering which piece you have to push where and which way you need to tilt for each operation. Now I should stress that you don't need parallel clamps for furniture making. They are nice though. I won't be getting rid of my pipe clamps, but by the same token, my next clamp I buy will likely be a parallel clamp, even if I can only afford one at a time. So which is the best value? It's hard to ignore the value proposition of the Boras. They are really cheap, but to me, they cut too many corners that personally I would rather save up the extra by the Torquatas. So if I'm already spending that much for the Torquatas, should I save up a bit more and buy the Besseys? There isn't really a need. The Torquatas or the Jets match them for quality, just at a cheaper price. Now I didn't even talk about the Torquata light duty clamps, but I don't think there is a need. They're priced about the same as the Boras, but cut even more corners. At this point, I think they'd be considered a ground clamp. I've included a chart in the article for the current pricing at the common lengths with raw dollar value difference and percentage difference, so you can make up your own mind about which is the best value for you. Thanks for watching.